The main event of this week was the news of April 26. Namely, the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyi, held a long, meaningful phone conversation with Chinese President Xi Jinping. And don't underestimate the result of this conversation, it's really important. Although Russia is trying to convince China will support them, but real situation is a bit different. Just look at how China acts in relation to Russia. This conversation worried the Russian terrorists so much that Putin's cortege arrived at the Kremlin late at night for the discussion. As a result, a decision was made to hit Ukrainian city Mykolaiv with guided missiles, the most valuable for the Russians. What caused the destructions of a non-military residential building, casualties and killed civilians. It should also be noted that China will send its special representative for Eurasian affairs to Ukraine and other countries to conduct in-depth communication with all parties regarding the political settlement of the conflict.
这是一个坚韧不拔的纪录片，在香港这座城市的设置。主演钱德勒、索罗斯、傅博斯伊、瑞秋、莫伊塔。
But unfortunately for Ukraine, Li Hui has been appointed as the special representative. Actually, he is the former ambassador of China to the Russian Terrorist Federation. While Russia still illegally occupies a place in the European Nations Security Court, Russia continues to create evil and pose a damage to the world. Russian representatives blocked the grain corridor, refused to allow traffic from Ukraine seaports. So 4 vessels couldn't depart and another one ship is waiting for passage to the port of Odessa. Furthermore, dictator Putin signed a decree allowing the deportation of Ukrainians from the temporarily occupied territories. According to the decree, people in the occupied territories of Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson and Zaporizhia regions who haven't accepted Russian citizenship will be recognized as foreigners and may be deported if they create a threat to the national security of Russia. Where they been deported, who knows, but certainly not on the controlled territory of Ukraine. It should be noted that the participants of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe recognize the deportation of Ukrainian adults and children to Russia as genocide. The corresponding resolution was adopted at the spring session. But of course, firstly, it should be useful, not just words on paper. At 4 a.m. on April 28, Russia again committed a terrorist act. Not to mention the constant shelling of the frontline territories. After a pause lasting 51 days, the enemy launched another missile strike across Ukraine. Worthless Russian beings attacked residential buildings at night, where people slept, where children were. Unfortunately, a young woman with a 3-year-old child died in Dnipro. And in Uman, there are also dead civilians, even child, about 3-year-old. Also, 11 cruise missiles and 2 drones were destroyed in the airspace of Kiev.
Ракета попала в наш дом. Ми всі в крові, я не знаю. Всі стекла вимило. А тут спали діти. Добре, що ви всі живі. Просто ми всі в крові, ми всі. Боже, в нас немає ні вікон, нічого. Я так злякалася. Суки, я вас ненавижу.
The Prime Minister of Ukraine reported that Ukraine has fulfilled all 7 recommendations of the European Commission for a candidate country for the European Union. And now we expect an interim report from the European authorities by the end of spring. Also this week, another prisoner exchange took place. Another 44 Ukrainians returned home. And the representatives of the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine confirm that the moment of exchange of all for all is approaching. In the United States, a resolution was presented on the conditions of the victory of Ukraine. It will be considered by the House of Representatives. It notes the following. United States policy is for Ukraine to defeat Russia and restore Ukrainians' internationally recognized borders of 1991. Peace after the victory of Ukraine should be ensured through the integration of Ukraine into NATO and other Euro-Atlantic institutions. The United States and partners will work to ensure that the Russian Terroristic Federation paid reparations to Ukraine and was responsible for the war. Well, we'll see. But anyway, we will, with big pleasure, enjoy the collapse of the Russian Terroristic Federation. This week was the anniversary of the tragedy. The accident at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant left a huge scar for the whole world. The 30-kilometer zone around the Chernobyl nuclear power plant is still a dangerous place with a high concentration of radiation. We Ukrainians know our history, unlike the ignorant Russians, because of whom, actually, this tragedy happened. Let me remind you that there is forest near Chernobyl, we call it ginger or red forest, which is completely, even for today, full of radiation. So, at the beginning of the war, the occupiers buried themselves in this radioactive ground, and of course then died in Belarus. Do you know what the moral is? The moral is that lack of knowledge or intelligence can kill you. Or even being Russian also can kill you. But well, where do Russians get brains from? They don't have it. Well, the British Ministry of Defense reports that the Russians have set up combat position on the reactors building of some other plant, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And the pictures that have been made public show that by March 2023, Russian troops have set up combat positions with sandbags on the roofs of several of the 6 reactor buildings of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And we'll remind you that Russia has been in control of this plant since March 2022. Yeah, it's almost more than a year. However, this is the first sign that actual reactor hulls are integrated into tactical defense planning. And from my opinion, there is actually already signs of contributing to a nuclear disaster. Russia has already committed genocide, ecocide, and ethnocide in Ukraine. Russia wants to influence the change in the ethnic composition of the population of the temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine. Moreover, Google has updated satellite images of temporarily occupied Ukrainian city Mariupol, which is now completely erased. On these pictures, you can see the scale of destruction and new mass burials. Now, it is possible to see the arrival of the festering Russian world. You could see it more clearly. By the way, about changes in nature. Last week, a meteorite fell in Kiev at night. On the same night, the aurora borealis was seen in Ukraine due to a powerful magnetic storm. This is, of course, a very beautiful phenomenon. But actually, for my opinion, like the more things in nature, the brighter can be the more poisonous for us. On the night of April 23-24, a bright aurora was observed in Ukraine and many countries of the northern hemisphere. Then there was a powerful geomagnetic storm G4, associated with the bombardment of our planet by a coronal mass ejection, which occurred on the Sun a few days before this phenomenon. I guess we should pay more attention and be careful what we do with our planet and nature. So, this was the last news for today. Glory to Ukraine, to our defenders. Stay with us at Yakovlev's channel for more news about war in Ukraine.